Have you ever been hurt so deeply that you promised yourself you would never love again? Camille Monroe did. After walking in on her fiancé and her best friend together, she buried herself in work, success, and travel. Every time someone asked her out, her answer never changed. I don't have time to date. But the truth wasn't that she lacked time, she lacked trust. Then, on a business trip thousands of miles from home, one unexpected conversation introduced her to a man who wasn't trying to change her, only to understand her. Could a patient heart heal wounds that betrayal left behind? Or would fear destroy the best thing that had ever happened to her? This is a story about heartbreak, healing, second chances, and discovering that the right love never asks you to stop being yourself. It simply gives you a safe place to become whole again. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to LA's Listening Lounge, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story. Now settle in, and let's begin. I don't have time to date. Chapter 1. The Day Love Broke Her. Before Betrayal walked into her home wearing her best friend's perfume, Camille Monroe believed she had finally built the life she deserved. She was beautiful, successful, and respected. At 38, she owned Monroe Creative Group, one of Atlanta's fastest-growing branding firms. She had a glass office downtown, a luxury condo in Buckhead, passport stamps from 6 continents, and a fiancé named Desmond, the man everyone said was her perfect match. And then there was Tasha. Tasha had been Camille's best friend since college. She knew every secret, every heartbreak, every prayer. Camille trusted her with the kind of trust you only give someone you believe would never hurt you. That trust ended on a rainy Thursday evening. Camille came home early from a client meeting, her heels aching from the day, ready to surprise Desmond with dinner reservations. But the moment she opened the door, she heard laughter coming from the den. Her den, the room where she prayed, planned, and dreamed about the future. She stepped closer and froze. Desmond and Tasha were together on the sofa Camille had picked out herself. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Tasha gasped, and Desmond jumped up, stumbling over excuses before he could even form a full sentence. "Camille, wait!" But Camille didn't wait. She looked down at the diamond ring on her finger, slid it off slowly, and placed it on the coffee table. Then she said, "You both can leave." Her voice stayed calm, but inside something shattered so loudly she could almost hear it. That night, Camille changed the locks. The next morning, she canceled the wedding, and from that day forward, love became a language Camille refused to speak. Chapter 2. I don't have time. 2 years passed, and Camille became harder to reach. Her business grew. Her name carried weight. She traveled for work and pleasure: Paris, Dubai, Ghana, Greece, Brazil. Online, her life looked like a dream. Designer luggage, ocean views, rooftop dinners, champagne flights, and first-class seats. But behind every beautiful picture was a woman who had learned how to smile without letting anyone close enough to matter. Her friends noticed the distance, and they tried to pull her back toward life. Her cousin Dana tried the most. "Camille, I know a nice man from my church," Dana said one Sunday after brunch. "Good job, kind heart, no foolishness." Camille stirred her tea and did not look up. "I don't have time to date." Her assistant tried next. "My husband has a friend," she said. "He's single, handsome, no kids, and gainfully employed." Camille gave her the polite smile she used in meetings when the answer was already no. "I don't have time to date." Men approached her everywhere: business conferences, airport lounges, charity galas, hotel bars, even the produce section at the grocery store. Different faces, different cities, same answer. "I don't have time to date." But the truth was, Camille had plenty of time. She had time to run a company, time to fly across the world, time to sit alone in 5-star hotels and order dinner for one, time to cry quietly when an old love song found her in the middle of the night. What she did not have was trust, and after what happened in that den, Camille had convinced herself she was safer without it. Chapter 3. The Man in the Lobby. Camille met Julian in Mexico City. She was there for a global women's business summit. After delivering a keynote speech, she returned to the hotel lobby in a cream pantsuit, wearing confidence like armor. She was checking messages on her phone when a deep voice stopped her. "Excuse me," the man said, "but your speech today was powerful." The man standing before her was tall, with smooth brown skin, a salt and pepper beard, and eyes that looked too sincere for Camille's comfort. "Thank you," she said. "I'm Julian Price," he said. "I own a commercial real estate development company in Dallas." "Camille Monroe." "I know," he said with a small smile. "Your name was on the program." Camille gave him her professional smile, the one that said thank you, but do not come any closer. Julian noticed. "I'm not trying to bother you," he said. I just wanted to say I admired the way you spoke about rebuilding after disappointment. That caught her attention. Most people only heard the business part, Camille said. Julian held her gaze. I heard the woman behind it. Camille did not know what to do with that. For the first time in years, a man had said something that did not sound rehearsed. They talked in the lobby for 20 minutes, then 40, then nearly an hour. Julian did not flirt too hard. He did not brag. He asked questions, waited for the answers, and actually listened. When Camille finally said she needed to go, Julian nodded like he respected the boundary. Then he asked, "Before you leave, can I have your number?" Camille almost gave him the answer she had given every man for the last 2 years, but something about Julian made her pause. "I don't date," she said. "I didn't ask for a date," Julian replied. "I asked for a chance to keep talking." Against her better judgment, Camille gave him her number. Chapter 4. Across the Miles. Julian called the next evening. Then he called the evening after that. Before long, their calls became part of Camille's routine. He lived in Dallas. She lived in Atlanta. At first, the distance made her feel safe. Julian could not show up unannounced. He could not invade her schedule. He could not ask too much too quickly. He was just a voice on the phone. But slowly, that voice became the best part of her day. They talked about business, childhood, faith, music, food, family, and fear. Julian told her he had been married once, years ago, and that the experience had taught him humility, patience, and the cost of taking love for granted. Camille shared less. She told him she had been engaged once, but she did not tell him about the den, not in the beginning. Julian did not push. "You don't have to tell me everything today," he said one night. "I'm not going anywhere tomorrow." That sentence stayed with her long after the call ended. Weeks turned into months. He learned that Camille loved jazz, peach cobbler, lavender candles, handwritten notes, sunflowers, seafood, old school R&B, and quiet mornings. She learned that Julian loved planning surprises, cooking breakfast, building things, and making people feel seen. Then one night Julian said, "Let me fly you to Dallas." Camille sat up in bed. "For what?" she asked. "A real date," she laughed nervously. "Julian, I told you." "I know," he said. "You don't have time to date." Camille smiled before she could stop herself. "But maybe," Julian continued, "you have time to be treated well." Chapter 5. Dallas. Camille almost canceled the trip 3 times, once at the airport, again at the gate, and one more time while sitting in first class, staring at the seatbelt sign like it might give her permission to run. Fear whispered that she was being foolish, that no man was worth risking her peace. That kindness was only another costume waiting to come off. But when she landed in Dallas, Julian was waiting near baggage claim with sunflowers in his hand. Not roses, sunflowers, because he had remembered. "You look beautiful," he said. Camille felt herself blush, and she hated how much she liked it. That evening, Julian took her to a quiet restaurant with soft lighting and live piano music. He pulled out her chair, asked about her flight, and never once checked his phone. After dinner, he surprised her with a carriage ride through downtown Dallas. The night air was cool, and the city lights shimmered around them. Camille sat beside him, trying not to enjoy the moment too much. "You're quiet," Julian said. "I'm thinking." "About running?" She looked at him. He smiled gently. "I can feel it." Camille looked away. "I'm not used to this." "Used to what?" "Being considered." Julian reached for her hand, but he held it loosely, giving her room to pull away. "You should have always been considered," he said. Later that night, he took her to hear a live band. When they played an old Anita Baker song, Julian stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me," he said. "I don't dance in public." "Then just sway with me." And somehow she did. For the first time in years, Camille let herself be held without planning her escape. Chapter 6. The Picnic. The next day, Julian told Camille to dress comfortably. He drove her to a quiet garden park where a picnic waited beneath the shade of an old tree. Camille stopped walking. A soft blanket had been spread across the grass. Lavender candles sat beside a vase of sunflowers. There was sparkling peach lemonade, shrimp pasta salad, fresh fruit, mini peach cobblers, and a small speaker playing old school R&B. It was everything she had mentioned in passing, everything he had remembered. Camille covered her mouth. "You did all this?" she asked. Julian looked almost shy. "You said you liked intimate things more than expensive things." Camille stared at him. Most men had tried to impress her with money. Julian impressed her with attention. They ate, laughed, and talked until the afternoon light began to soften. Then, without planning to, Camille told him the truth about Desmond and Tasha. She told him about walking into the den, about the ring on her finger, about the humiliation that followed, about how betrayal had made her feel foolish for ever trusting anyone at all. Julian listened without interrupting. By the time she finished, tears had slipped down her face. I'm sorry they did that to you, Julian said. But Camille, their betrayal was not proof that your heart was foolish. It was proof they were careless with something valuable. Camille cried harder, not because his words hurt, but because they reached a place she had been trying not to feel. By the end of the trip, leaving Dallas felt harder than she expected, and that scared her more than anything. Chapter 7. Atlanta Love. Julian came to Atlanta 3 weeks later. Camille told herself it was only a visit, but Julian arrived as if he wanted to love her in her own city, not just from a distance. He took her to the High Museum because she loved art. He planned dinner at a rooftop restaurant because she loved watching the city glow at night. He booked a private cooking class because months earlier, she had mentioned wanting to learn how to make homemade pasta. He even brought her favorite lavender candle and set it on her kitchen counter like it belonged there. You pay attention too much, Camille said. Julian smiled. That's called caring. The weekend was beautiful, too beautiful, beautiful enough to make Camille panic. On Sunday night, after Julian flew back to Dallas, she called him before she could talk herself out of it. I don't think we should keep doing this, she said. Silence filled the line. Then Julian said, What happened? Nothing, Camille said. That's the problem. Camille. I can't do this, Julian. The distance, the feelings, the expectations. I'm not built for this anymore. You're scared, he said. I'm realistic. No, Julian said softly. You're scared. Camille wanted to argue, but tears came instead. Julian did not get angry. He did not guilt her. He only said, I'm not Desmond. And I'm not Tasha. I know I have to earn your trust, not demand it. Camille cried herself to sleep that night, but she did not block his number. Chapter 8. Almost goodbye. Their relationship continued, but it did not continue without storms. Every few months, Camille convinced herself it would be easier to end things before Julian had the chance to hurt her. If Julian did not answer fast enough, her mind filled in the silence with fear. If he had a business dinner, old wounds whispered that there had to be another woman. If he said, I love you, panic warned her that love was only the beginning of pain. Then one night, the fear finally turned into a fight. Julian missed their usual call because a project meeting ran late. He texted to explain, but by the time Camille saw the message, her thoughts had already gone too far. I can't do this, she snapped when he finally called. I'm not about to sit around wondering what a man is doing. Julian's voice stayed calm, but Camille could hear the hurt beneath it. I told you where I was, he said. That's what men do, Camille said. They tell you enough to keep you quiet. For a moment, Julian said nothing, then he spoke carefully. I understand why you're hurt, but I won't accept being punished for wounds I didn't create. His words landed hard because they were true. Camille sat on her bed, suddenly ashamed of the way fear had been speaking through her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I love you, Julian said, but I need you to let me love the woman in front of me, not keep fighting the ghost of the man behind you. That night changed something in Camille. She started therapy again. She began journaling honestly, not just writing what sounded strong. She prayed differently, not for God to protect her from love, but to help her recognize safe love when it was standing right in front of her. Chapter 9. A year and a half. For the next year and a half, Love learned how to travel between Atlanta and Dallas. It looked like airport hugs that lasted a little longer every time. Late night calls when one of them was too tired to talk, but neither wanted to hang up first. Weekend visits squeezed between board meetings, client pitches, and flight delays. Surprise flowers sent on ordinary Tuesdays just because Julian knew ordinary days needed beauty too. Business advice traded over speakerphone while Camille paced her office after dark. Arguments that ended not with slammed doors, but with honesty. Fear that still showed up sometimes, followed by reassurance that stayed longer. Julian never rushed Camille's healing, but he also loved her too honestly to let her hide forever. Camille met his family and found warmth instead of judgment. Julian met hers and fit in so naturally that it almost frightened her. After one family dinner, Dana pulled Camille aside and lowered her voice. Across the room, Julian was laughing with Camille's uncle, completely unaware that he was being studied. That man loves you, Dana said. Camille watched Julian for a moment, then smiled softly. I know, she said. Dana raised an eyebrow. You finally said that without flinching. Camille laughed under her breath. I'm learning, she said, and she was. She learned that love did not have to feel like begging. She learned that consistency could be romantic. She learned that peace did not have to be boring. She learned that being independent did not mean refusing to be held. Chapter 10. The Question. Julian proposed in Dallas. He flew Camille in for what she thought was a simple anniversary weekend. That evening, he recreated their first date piece by piece. Dinner at the same quiet restaurant, a carriage ride beneath the Dallas lights. Live music that made Camille remember the first time she had let herself sway in his arms. Then Julian drove her back to the same garden park where he had planned their first picnic. This time the old tree glowed with soft lights. Sunflowers lined the path. Beneath the branches, a blanket weighted with peach lemonade, lavender candles, and 2 glasses catching the moonlight. Camille stopped walking. Julian, he turned to her and took both of her hands. A year and a half ago, he said, you told me you didn't have time to date, but somehow you made time to heal. You made time to trust. And little by little, you made time for us. Tears filled Camille's eyes before he even reached for the ring. Then Julian lowered to one knee. Camille Monroe, he said, I am not asking you to forget what hurt you. I am asking you to let me spend the rest of my life proving that love can still be safe. Will you marry me? Camille looked at the man in front of her, the man who had never played with her heart, the man who stayed gentle when she was afraid, the man who had loved her patiently without ever asking her to pretend she had not been hurt. Yes, Camille whispered. Then louder, through tears, she said, yes. Julian slid the ring onto her finger, and Camille realized something. This time the ring did not feel like a promise waiting to be broken. It felt like peace. Epilogue. Camille and Julian married the following spring in Atlanta, surrounded by family, flowers, and a kind of joy Camille once believed belonged to other women. After the wedding, Camille moved to Dallas. She kept her company, expanded it, and opened a second office there. She still traveled the world, but now she had someone waiting at home, ready to hear every story. 2 years later, after a journey Camille once thought might never be part of her story, she gave birth to twins. A girl and a boy. They named their daughter Soleil because she brought light into every room. They named their son Miles because love had crossed every mile between Atlanta and Dallas and still found its way home. One evening, Camille stood in the nursery doorway, watching Julian rock both babies while humming softly under his breath. Then her phone buzzed. It was Dana. The message read, "Remember when you said you didn't have time to date?" Camille smiled and typed back, "I didn't. I was too busy healing." Then Camille looked at her husband, her children, and the life she almost missed, because fear had convinced her love was dangerous. Julian looked up from the rocking chair. "You okay?" he asked. Camille nodded, still smiling. "I'm better than okay." And for the first time in years, she meant it completely, because Camille Monroe Price had learned the truth. Love had not been her enemy. Betrayal had. And once she stopped letting betrayal speak for her future, love finally had room to answer. Thank you for listening to today's story here at LA's Listening Lounge. Camille's journey reminds us that betrayal doesn't get to write the final chapter of our lives. Healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about refusing to let yesterday's pain steal tomorrow's joy. Sometimes the greatest love story begins the moment we stop believing we're unworthy of love. If this story encouraged you, touched your heart, or reminded you that healthy love still exists, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment sharing your favorite moment, and subscribe for more original stories every week. Share this video with someone who may be healing from heartbreak. You never know whose hope you might restore. Until next time, remember, love isn't about finding someone who never makes mistakes. It's about finding someone who consistently makes you feel safe, seen, valued, and chosen. Thank you for spending time in LA's Listening Lounge, where stories can be heard and words can be felt.